The night I walked into my own kitchen and had three strangers look at me like I was breaking into their house, I realized my son's Airbnb side hustle had gone a whole lot further than he'd admitted. The man with the beard actually stepped in front of me, arm out like I was some kind of threat, and said, excuse me? This place is booked through Sunday. Who are you? Who am I? In my own kitchen. That was the moment I understood I wasn't just a mom helping her divorced down on his luck son anymore. I was standing in the lobby of a hotel I never agreed to open. Before I tell you how my son turned my quiet little home into his personal Airbnb empire, and how I had to choose between protecting him from debt and protecting my house from becoming a hotel, do me one small favor. If you like listening to long, honest family stories while you cook, fold laundry, or lie in bed at night, tap the like button and subscribe so YouTube knows to bring you back to Aunt Ruby's voice every week. Now pull up a chair, because this one starts with a mother's soft heart and ends with a very hard decision at City Hall. My name is Helen. I'm 68 years old. I live in a small 2-bedroom house in a suburb outside Dallas. It's not fancy, but it's mine. Paid off, thank you very much, after 35 years of mortgages, extra shifts, and bringing home leftover chicken from the diner. If you walked into my place, you'd see a little front garden full of flowers I can't pronounce, but my neighbor swears like the heat. A couch older than my youngest grandchild. Family pictures along the hallway, some of them still in the frames we bought at the dollar store when my boys were small. I have 2 kids, Michael and Josh. This story is about Michael. Michael is my oldest, 40 years old. He is good-looking in the way men stay good-looking when they know they can talk their way out of most trouble. He's always been a dreamer. As a boy, he sold lemonade, baseball cards, then homemade energy drinks before those were even a thing. As a man, he sold insurance, cars, mattresses, solar panels, and one time a nutritional supplement I still don't understand. He married young, divorced 10 years later. If you ask him what happened, he'll say, "We just wanted different things." If you ask his ex-wife, she'll say, "I wanted a partner, not a third child." Somewhere in the middle is a truth I don't get to hear. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was making scrambled eggs and waiting on the weather report. "Hey, Mom," Michael said. His voice had that forced brightness I've learned to dread. "How are you, sweetheart?" I asked, because there is no age where a mother stops asking that. "I'm okay," he said. "You busy?" "Busy doing what?" I laughed. "Having a wild party with my houseplants?" He didn't laugh back. I got laid off," he said. My heart dropped. "What happened?" "Company's restructuring," he said quickly. "We had a bad quarter. They cut my whole team. It's not just me." He always says that when something goes wrong. It's not just me. "So what are you going to do?" I asked. He sighed. "Well, that's actually why I'm calling," he said. "I can't keep up the rent on my apartment without a job. I just need a little time to land on my feet. Could I maybe move in with you for a while?" I stared at the little pan of eggs, the old clock ticking on my wall, the stack of mail by the microwave. Of course he could. That's the curse and blessing of motherhood. They can be 40 with a beard and back hair, but your brain still sees the boy with scraped knees asking if he can sleep in your bed during a thunderstorm. "Of course," I said. "Pack your things. We'll make it work." Now, I'm not foolish. I know "for a while" is one of the slipperiest phrases in the English language. But I told myself it'd be a few months. He'd regroup, find another job, move out. I have a small house, 2 bedrooms, mine and what used to be his and Josh's room growing up. Now it's my guest room. A twin bed, a dresser, a closet full of "I'll sort that later." We cleared a corner, lugged in his boxes. He walked through the door with 2 suitcases, 3 boxes, and a plant he said was great for air quality. "I'll help with the bills," he said, dropping his keys in my little dish by the door like he'd never left. "I know," I said, and I believed him. At first, he tried. He applied for jobs, he got a couple of interviews, came home with tie half loosened and hope wrinkled at the edges. "It went great," he'd say. "They loved me, they're just going in a different direction." That different direction never seemed to include him. Unemployment didn't stretch far. His savings were thinner than he'd let on. After a couple of months, I started noticing the grocery bill creeping up and the light switches creeping down. "Ma, why do you always leave these on?" he'd say, flicking them off behind me. "Because I like to see where I'm going," I'd snap. Money has a way of making even the sweetest people prickly. One night over meatloaf, he leaned back in his chair. "I've been thinking," he said, "I should help more with the bills. But since cash is tight right now, what if I help bring in some money?" "How?" I asked. He smiled that smile he used to wear when he was about to sell me something I already owned. "Have you heard of Airbnb?" he asked. Now, I'm not completely clueless. I know Airbnb. It's that thing where you stay in someone's spare room instead of a hotel and hope they're not serial killers. "I'm not turning my house into a hostel," I said firmly. "Just listen," he said.
People are always coming through our town for games, weddings, conferences. You have a nice guest room, private bathroom down the hall. We could list it as a cozy stay. I'll handle everything. The photos, the messaging, the cleaning. You'd make extra money. We could pay the utilities, your property tax, maybe even fix that leak in the roof. I frowned. I don't want strangers sleeping in my house while I'm here, I said firmly. He held up his hands. Of course, he said quickly. I meant only when you're at Aunt Linda's or visiting Josh. You're already gone those weekends. The place is empty. Why not let it earn something for you? I have to admit, the idea of my little house paying its own bills for once in its life had a certain appeal. What about the neighbors? I asked. I don't want them thinking I'm running a boarding house. They won't know, he said. People come, people go. Besides, everyone does it now. It's normal. That should have been my first red flag. Everyone does it has justified more dumb ideas in my family than I care to count. But I let myself be talked into a trial weekend. Only when I'm away, I repeated. Only the spare room. No parties, no extra guests. You stay here, you supervise, and you make sure nothing, and I mean nothing, happens to my things. He kissed my forehead. Ma, he said, trust me. You won't even know they were here. If you're already shaking your head, you're smarter than I was. The first booking felt almost exciting. Michael showed me the listing on his phone. See, he said proudly. Cozy suburban room in quiet home. Perfect for business travelers and visiting family. Hosted by Michael on behalf of his mom. The pictures made my house look better than it does in person. The lighting was kind, the bed looked fluffy. You couldn't see the little crack in the wall where the boys once slammed a wrestling match too hard. $79 a night, he said. Minus fees, we clear about $60. For 3 nights while you're at Aunt Linda's, that's almost $200. That's your electricity and half your water bill. I admit, my heart did a little math of its own. A few weekends like that, maybe I could finally get that dishwasher fixed. I went to my sister Linda's house, feeling like I just
hired my home for a part-time job. When I came back on Sunday night, everything looked normal. Bed made, towels washed, a little envelope on the table with $150 in cash. Tips, Michael said. Some folks tip the host. We did it a few more times, always when I was away, always the guest room. He stayed, he oversaw. Nothing went missing, except a chipped mug I didn't like anyway. I started thinking maybe I'd been overcautious. Then a few weekends turned into, when you go stay with Linda. Then into, hey Mom, your book club's at Carol's this Thursday. Why don't you just stay over and we'll do one night? The line kept moving. I told myself it was helping us both. Then the city stepped in. But they weren't the worst part. The worst part was walking into my kitchen that night and realizing my son had crossed a line I hadn't even known he'd drawn. It happened in July. I was supposed to stay at Linda's from Friday to Sunday. We do that sometimes, sister sleepover. Wine we buy because it's on sale, not because we know anything about wine. On Saturday afternoon, Linda's grandson called. He'd come down with a fever. I need to run home, Linda said. Can we cut this short? Of course, I said. Take me by my place. I'll be fine. I didn't think to warn Michael. Why would I? He knew I'd be gone, sure. But as far as I was concerned, we hadn't booked anything that weekend. When Linda dropped me off, I noticed a car in the driveway I didn't recognize. A little blue hatchback with out-of-state plates. Maybe a friend of Michael's, I thought. He'd mentioned a poker night sometime soon. I walked in through my own front door and stopped dead. There were shoes by the mat that weren't mine, a backpack by the couch, 2 suitcases halfway down the hall. And in my kitchen stood 3 strangers in pajamas, eating cereal out of my bowls. They all froze. I froze. We stared at each other like no one knew whose nightmare this belonged to. The man with the beard spoke first. Can we help you? He asked. Can you help me? I repeated. I live here. They exchanged looks. This is the Airbnb, cozy suburban room, right? The woman said slowly. We booked for 3 nights. Your son checked us in. My son did what? Michael, the younger man said. Tall, talkative. He said his mom was out of town and we had the run of the kitchen. My ears started ringing. My kitchen? I said. He told you could use my kitchen? They nodded, uncertain now. Are you not his mom? The woman asked. That's when the anger hit. It traveled up from my toes like electricity. I am his mother.
and this is my home. And none of you should be standing in my house when I'm not here. The bearded man held up his hands. We're sorry, he said quickly. He said you were okay with it. If this is a problem, we can just leave and ask for a refund. I closed my eyes for a second, pinched the bridge of my nose. It's not your fault, I said finally. You were told something that isn't true. Let me call my son. Michael answered on the second ring. Hey, Ma, everything okay at Linda's? I'm not at Linda's, I said. I'm standing in my kitchen with 3 strangers eating cereal at my table. Silence. Ah, he said. Okay, don't freak out, I can explain. Don't freak out, I repeated. Michael James Parker, you turned my house into a bed and breakfast without telling me. I didn't turn it into anything, he said defensively. It's just one booking. The calendar was open for this weekend. You were supposed to be gone. I thought you'd be okay. You thought wrong. I snapped. He sighed. Look, I'm on my way back, he said. Just don't make a scene in front of them, okay? I've got a 5-star rating to maintain. I hung up without answering. The guests were watching me, spoons hovering over their bowls. I'm sorry, I said stiffly. You finish your breakfast. We'll straighten this out when my son gets here. They were very polite, apologetic, embarrassed. I was polite too, on the outside. Inside, my thoughts were so loud, I'm surprised they couldn't hear them. He used my house. He used my absence. Not just the guest room, the whole place. Kitchen privileges and everything. My mind flashed through worst-case scenarios. What if they broke something? What if they got hurt? What if something happened and my homeowner's insurance found out I'd been running an unlicensed short-term rental? That was the first time that phrase entered my head. It would not be the last. Things got worse before they got better. Actually, they got worse before they got much worse. Michael came in all apologies and charm. Hey folks, he said to the guests. Sorry for the confusion. This is my mom. We had a little miscommunication about her visit being cut short. You're still totally welcome here for the rest of your stay. Aren't they, Mom? He looked at me, eyes pleading over his polite host smile. 3 sets of hopeful guest eyes turned my way. They had booked travel, taken time off, lugged suitcases. None of this was their fault. I am not a monster. Yes, I said tightly. You can finish your stay. But after that, there will be no more bookings. Michael's jaw flickered. Mom? Not here. I hissed. We will talk in private. He gave them some nonsense about house rules changing, offered them a discount, and ushered me into my bedroom like I was the one making trouble. He closed the door, and the polite mask dropped. Ma, what are you doing? He demanded in a harsh whisper. You can't just shut this down. We've got a good thing going. We had a thing. I shot back. A specific agreement. Only when I'm away. Only the spare room. Not my kitchen. Not my entire house while I'm supposedly out of town. He rolled his eyes. It's the same thing, he said. They're respectful. I've had everybody. We're making good money. I've been catching up the bills. You like that the lights stay on, don't you? That stung. I would like it, I said slowly, if my home wasn't being traded like some investment property without my knowledge. This is my home, Michael, not your business venture. He scoffed. It's both, he said. With housing prices the way they are, do you know what an asset like this is worth? We're sitting on a gold mine, and you want to act like it's a museum. I stared at him. When did you start saying we? I asked. He hesitated. We're a team. I am not partners, I said. I am your mother, and you're abusing my trust. He looked genuinely hurt for a moment. I'm trying to help, he said. I'm drowning in debt. The severance is gone. The credit cards are maxed. This Airbnb money means I can pay you something for staying here. You think I like being 40 and living with my mom? That landed somewhere soft in me. Of course he didn't. I know what pride looks like when it's been dented. But another part of me had spent the last hour talking herself down from a panic attack because they were strangers making toast with my knife. We'll finish this booking, I said finally. Then the listing comes down. Or at the very least, you do nothing without asking me first. No more surprises. He didn't agree. He didn't argue either. He just nodded tightly, the way people nod when they're already planning how to go around you. We might have muddled along like that. Me suspicious, him sneaky, until the bookings dried up or I died. But the city had other plans. 2 months later, I got a letter. City of Garland, Code Compliance Office. At first, I thought it was about my trash cans. They'd been strict lately about when you took them out. I opened it, standing at the kitchen counter, sun coming in through the window. Lily's coloring page still on the table from her last visit. Notice of violation. It said, unpermitted short-term rental activity on residential premises.
Was a case number, a list of possible fines, and a date to appear if we wanted to contest it. At the bottom, in neat little legal print, it said they had evidence of online listings and guest stays at my address without proper registration. I put my hand on the counter because the room tilted. Michael was in his old room, typing away on his laptop. I walked down the hall and handed him the letter. "What's this?" he mumbled, eyes still on the screen. "Read it," I said. He did, his face drained of color. "Okay," he said slowly. "It's not a big deal. Lots of cities send these. It's just a slap on the wrist. We can fix it." "Fix it how?" I asked. "Register," he said. "Get a permit, pay the fee. It'll be fine." "I didn't want a hotel," I said. "I don't want a permit for something I never agreed to." He ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, please," he said. "Don't freak out. I can cover the fine. We can say—" He stopped. I saw the thought cross his face like a shadow. "We can say what?" I pressed. He swallowed. "We can say it was a misunderstanding," he said, "that you were just renting to friends of family. Or we can say you had no idea, that it was me, that you were an innocent owner. If they believe that, they might go easier on you." I blinked. "You want me to tell the city I didn't know what was happening?" He nodded. "It's practically true," he said. "You didn't know the extent. If you act shocked, say you thought it was just occasional house guests, they'll go after me, not you. And frankly, Mom, I can't afford for them to go after anyone. I'm barely staying ahead as it is. If this turns into some massive fine or lawsuit, I'm sunk." There it was, the fork in the road. Protect my son's finances by playing dumb with the city about something that happened under my roof. Or tell the whole truth and watch him drown in consequences he helped fill the pool for. I didn't give him an answer right away. "I need to think," I said. He followed me to the kitchen. "Mom, please," he said. "You don't understand how bad this could get. If they hit us with thousands in fines, they could put a lien on the house. You could lose it." That got my attention. Lose the house. The idea of my little, paid-off place being at risk because my son turned it into a side business made my hands shake. He saw that and pushed harder. "We're in this together," he said. "They see your name on the deed. If you just say, 'I didn't know, I thought my son was just having friends over,' I can take the hit, maybe do some community service, pay a smaller fee. But if you tell them everything, they'll say you were complicit, that you benefited, and they'll go after you too." He was asking me to become his accomplice in his own cover story. A small lie to protect against a big penalty. At least that's how he framed it. But I've lived long enough to know lies rarely stay small. That night, after he went out for some air, I sat at my kitchen table with the violation letter in front of me and my old mortgage papers beside it. This house had seen my boys' first steps, their teenage tantrums, my husband's last breath. It was more than wood and drywall. It was the only thing between me and a life where I depended on other people's couches. I thought about Lily, who loved my little guest room because it always smells like you, Grandma. I thought about my neighbor Marge, who had already side-eyed all the extra cars in our street lately. And I thought about Michael as a 6-year-old, standing in this same kitchen, crying because he'd broken my favorite mug trying to help with dishes. Back then, I'd picked him up and said, "It's just a thing. You matter more than any mug." Now, I had to figure out if that still applied when the thing was my entire house. When the hearing day came, we both went down to the City Hall building. He wore his job interview shirt. I wore my best church outfit.
We sat in stiff chairs under fluorescent lights, waiting for her case to be called. Parker Residence, the clerk finally said. We went up. A city compliance officer read out the details. Unpermitted short-term rental use documented at this address. Multiple stays recorded through an online platform. No permit or registration on file. Violation of city ordinance number. His voice blurred. Ma'am, he said finally, looking at me. Are you the owner of the property? Yes, I said. Did you authorize short-term rental of your property for income? I felt Michael tense beside me. Here it was. My moment to protect him. Or my moment to protect myself. I took a breath. I authorized my son, I said slowly, to rent out my spare room occasionally when I was out of town, under the understanding that he would be present and that it would not turn into a regular business. The officer's eyebrow went up. So you were aware your home was being used as a rental? Yes, I said. I was aware of some use. I was not aware of how often or that it was being advertised online like a hotel. Michael shifted. Mom, he began. I held up a hand. I am not going to stand here and pretend I didn't know anything, I said. That wouldn't be true. But I also didn't understand that what we were doing was considered a short-term rental business that needed permits. I thought my son was having occasional guests to help with bills. I'm not trying to dodge responsibility. I'm trying to explain the limits of what I agreed to. The officer nodded slowly. He turned to Michael. And you? He asked. Michael swallowed. I set up the listing, he said. I handled the bookings. Mom didn't know all the details. She trusted me. I probably took advantage of that. There was a quiet honesty in that probably that told me he felt the weight too. The officer studied us for a moment. You'd be surprised how often we see this, he said. Adult kids turning mom or grandma's house into a side hustle without understanding the rules. Here's the deal. You're in violation. There will be a fine. But because you've come forward, because this is a first offense, and because you, he nodded at Michael, are acknowledging your role, we're going to keep it on the lower end of the scale. You'll need to either apply for a legal permit and meet all city requirements, or provide proof that all short-term rental activity has ceased and the listing is taken down. Continuing without compliance will result in larger fines, possibly liens. He slid a paper across the desk. The fine amount still made my stomach flip, but it wasn't lose the house bad. More like tighten the belt for a long while bad. We left the building in silence. Outside, Michael let out a long breath. That could have been worse. It could have been avoided, I replied. We drove home with the radio off. Back at the house, he went straight to his laptop. 5 minutes later, I heard him sigh. It's done, he said. Listing is deactivated. No more bookings. No more extra income. There was a bite in his tone. Then no more risk of strangers in my kitchen, I said. We stood in the doorway of the spare room, looking at the bed where so many unknown heads had rested. It was working, he said quietly. We were finally getting ahead. At what cost? I asked. He shrugged, then turned to me, eyes suddenly shining. I'm sorry, he said. I really am. I should have told you exactly what I was doing. I wanted to fix things, to not be a burden. And once it started making money, it was hard to stop. Addiction comes in many flavors. For some, it's a bottle. For some, it's a slot machine. For my son, it's the rush of a good idea that makes him feel in control, in a life that's usually not. I put a hand on his arm. I know you meant well, I said. I also know you crossed a line. This house is not just an asset. It's my sanctuary. When I walk in the door, I need...
No, every person under this roof is supposed to be here. Not just because the law says so, but because my heart does. He nodded, jaw tight. I'll figure something else out, he said. You're going to need to, I replied, because this, I gestured around, is done. In the months since, we've paid the fine, slowly, painfully. He picked up temp work, odd jobs. Finally, a steady position, not as fancy as his last, but honest.
We still argue about money sometimes. He still thinks I'm old-fashioned about monetizing assets. I still think he treats other people's spaces like stages for his hustle. But there's a new understanding between us. When he has an idea, we talk about it first. When I go to Linda's, I lock my bedroom door, even if I trust him. Once trust has a crack in it, it takes a while before you stop looking at it every time the light hits. If you've stayed with me this long, maybe you're in a similar storm. Maybe you're an older parent or grandparent letting a grown child move back in for a while. Maybe they've mentioned Airbnb, Uber, dropshipping, or some other easy money idea that somehow starts in your living room. Here's what I've learned standing in the doorway between family and business. First, helping with the bills is not a free pass to turn your home into a storefront. If someone is living in your house, they owe you honesty about what they're doing under that roof, especially if money is changing hands. Second, if a plan only works as long as you don't find out early, it's not a good plan. The fact that Michael panicked when I came home a day early told me everything I needed to know about how above board this really was. Third, you can love your child without co-signing their schemes. Saying no to turning your spare room into a revolving door does not mean you're unsupportive. It means you understand that your safety, your peace, and your name on legal documents matter too. Fourth, protecting them from every consequence doesn't actually protect them. If I had lied at City Hall, played the helpless old lady who knew nothing, maybe we could have dodged a bigger fine. But I would have taught my son that mom will always cover for him. At 40, he needed to learn how to stand in his own mess without dragging me into the middle of it. And finally, your home is not just the place you sleep. It is your last line of defense against a world that constantly wants to turn every square inch into content or income. It is okay to draw a line around it and say, this is where I live. This is where I breathe. This is where I am not a product. I still keep my guest room ready. But these days, the only people who sleep in it are family and friends who know my real name, not just my listing title. And if some stranger ever stands in my kitchen again and asks, "Who are you?" I'll smile, take a deep breath, and say, "I'm the woman who owns this house, and I finally learned that's worth more than any 5-star review."